Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Thursday, August 6, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, Japan's marking the 81st anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima as protests intensify against the current government's military ambitions. Iran says it's near an agreement with Oman on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, and UNESCO is recognizing Beijing as a world capital of architecture. In business, China's machinery sector records strong growth through the first half of the year. In sports, the European football preseason continues its warm-ups in Asia. In culture and entertainment, a popular Chinese film debuts in Vietnam ahead of more international markets. Now the day's top stories. The city of Hiroshima has marked the 81st anniversary of the atomic bombing that killed tens of thousands of people and led to Imperial Japan's surrender in World War II. Thursday's commemoration comes amid concerns over the Japanese government's re-militarization and shift from its pacifist constitution. Since 1967, Japan's upheld the three non-nuclear principles, but under Prime Minister Sanae Takeichi, calls to revise the principles, including the ban on introducing nuclear weapons into Japan, have grown, sparking protests and criticism among Japanese civil society groups. Najib Elkash has more from Hiroshima.
Well, Hiroshima has always been a focal center for peace activism due to its symbolic place in Japanese and actually world history. But being here today for the 81st anniversary of the atomic bomb, we feel that tension is notably high. Perhaps that is due to the recent political moves by the Japanese government, which were perceived, especially here in Hiroshima, as a threat to pacifism. Many activists and demonstrators we talked to today actually expressed their strong feelings in this regard.
I heard that 76% of Japanese people support upholding the three anti-nuclear principles, and I think that poll is very important. I firmly believe that the three principles of not possessing, not manufacturing, and not allowing nuclear weapons on Japanese soil are in line with the Japanese Constitution and should be protected.
In my opinion, 76% is a surprisingly low figure. It should be in the 80s or 90s. Japan is the only victim of nuclear weapons in the world, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we should never allow a third incident to happen. In old times, there were leaders who asserted that Japan does not go to war or any related activities, but current leaders are starting to export weapons, and they want to make an industry out of it. I think that true global leaders would stop such things.
The gap between different speeches delivered here today also stood out. While everyone did emphasize the importance of world peace, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takeichi described the current security situation as difficult and requiring firm commitment. Whereas, for example, we saw Norihiko Hachijo, the head of the Hiroshima City Council, and other Hiroshima officials expressing their unwavering opposition to nuclear weapons and their rejection of war as an absolute principle.
That was Najib Elkash in Hiroshima, Japan. On the 81st anniversary of the attack, an 86-year-old Hiroshima A-bomb survivor has appealed to the government to pursue peace and stop remilitarization. Rumi Hanagaki recounted her traumatic experience living through the war.
When the atomic bomb exploded, bodies lay piled everywhere. The stench overwhelmed me, and I fainted. It's hard to say, but Japan is not working for peace right now. We have been protected by Article 9 for about 80 years. I went to primary school the year the article was enacted. The memory is still fresh to me. Being protected by the pacifist constitution for 80 years, why on earth do we change it? We need no weapons. We don't want to possess or export weapons. It is absolutely unnecessary to possess or receive lethal weapons. These are the heartfelt words from us atomic bomb survivors.
For more insights now, Hona earlier spoke with Professor Tung Jian-chun at Guangdong University of Foreign Studies, who shared his thoughts on the lessons the world should draw from Japan's wartime aggression.
It's really a tragedy for Japan especially the United States used 2 atomic bombs against the Japanese people in 1945. And the logic for the United States to use the atomic bomb was quite simple. That is to avoid more casualties during the war. And according to the U.S. assessment at that time, there would be 1 million soldiers or innocent people killed during conventional occupation of Japan by the United States. So the U.S. leaders used atomic bombs against the Japanese people, and there were 260,000 innocent people were killed during the use of nuclear bombs. We should be very cautious about the development current days in Japanese government. And some top leaders of Japanese government said Japan should think about the position of nuclear capability, including the common sharing of the nuclear power for Japanese self-defense forces. So this is actually a very dangerous situation for the Japanese people. And the regional countries should be very cautious to look at the development in the new militarism in Japan.
Professor, we're seeing at least 128 local assemblies from 36 Japanese prefectures have urged the Takaichi administration to uphold Japan's 3 non-nuclear principles and written opinions to the Diet. Well, that hits a 26-year record high. So against the backdrop of the country's record high military budget this year and the approval of the lethal weapon exports, how do you evaluate the Takaichi government's political motives behind its apparent push for military expansion at this point?
Yeah, we have witnessed the strong protest or the opposition from the local government, from different organizations, and from the ordinary people in Japan. But I don't think such a movement will give any positive influence on the decision of the current Japanese government, because Prime Minister Takaichi has already selected a very dangerous route, that is to go new militarism. She is quite familiar with the history. She's quite familiar with the situation Japan is facing now. And she would like to manipulate the disputes, the contradictions with neighboring countries, and to mobilize the support from the Japanese people. And such a tendency adopted by the current Japanese government will give the country a very dangerous way to go ahead.
That was Professor Tung Jian-chun at Guangdong University of Foreign Studies. Beijing has urged Tokyo to stop making excuses for its military expansion. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian says instead of reflecting on its militarist past, Japan has continued to accelerate its push toward remilitarization. The remarks came after the Japanese government released its Defense of Japan 2026 report, which describes China's military activities as Japan's greatest strategic challenge ever. Lin warns that Tokyo is breaking the constraints of the Japanese constitution, international law, and domestic regulations, and openly challenging the post-war international order. He says Japan's newly released defense white paper frames the country's military-industrial expansion as a new economic growth point. A move, he says, refutes Japan's claims of being a peace-loving country. The spokesperson urges the international community to remain alert and stop these dangerous developments before they go too far. Japan's launched a new centralized intelligence body following legislation enacted in May to create the new National Intelligence Council. This is the first centralized intelligence institute that Japan's established after World War II. The intelligence overhaul is seen as a further break from Japan's post-war World War II security framework. The move has triggered strong criticism from Japanese civilians in the international community. Hitomi Sugiure is a Japanese lawyer.
More Japanese people have come to realize that the government's recent series of aggressive moves, such as allocating more resources to defense and intelligence and pushing for constitutional revision, are steering the country away from the path of peace. This is both alarming and infuriating. The government is wrong, and we must stand firm in our opposition.
Masahiko Shimizu is the professor of constitutional law with Nippon Sports Science University.
I believe Sanae Takaichi herself is the single most destabilizing factor in the current regional situation. To preserve peace, she should be removed from office as soon as possible. The Japanese constitution was founded on reflection over past wars of aggression, with the core principle of never waging war again. Only someone who upholds that principle is fit to serve as prime ministers.
Ivona Ladjevac is a senior research fellow with the Institute of International Politics and Economics, Belgrade.
For decades, there were the politicians that were not totally agreed with the system that has been implemented in Japan after the Second World War. So to work more on the militarization of Japan. Of course, it is on the contrary of that people are worrying. You know, they are worrying that maybe this situation before the Second World War isn't about to be repeated. We hope not, but from the other hand, when you have a prime minister that has so harsh reactions or comments, it is logical to see that the neighbors of Japan are concerned about that.
The establishment of the new intelligence agencies intensified debate over Japan's security policy, with critics warning it could further undermine regional trust and stability. Coming up, Iran and Oman say they're close to reaching a deal regarding the Strait of Hormuz.
OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic are all cutting prices. Coincidence? Or a sign that Chinese AI is changing the game? As Washington weighs tougher restrictions on Chinese AI models, Silicon Valley is sending a very different message, with NVIDIA, Microsoft, and others embracing open-weight AI. So can the US still contain China's AI rise, or has the race already shifted from stopping China to competing with it? Join us as we unpack the next chapter in the global AI battle on this week's Chat Lounge. Listen wherever you get your podcasts and on CGTN Radio.
12 minutes past the hour. Iran says an agreement with Oman on new arrangements for commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is close to being finalized. The deal is seen as giving Tehran control of the strait, which the U.S. has repeatedly rejected. Iran's deputy foreign minister says the potential agreement does not mean the strait will be reopened completely. Kazem Garibaldi also rejected U.S. claims of negotiations with Iran. But he said Tehran's received word from Washington of its readiness to return to commitments under the MOU that was signed in June. Ehsan Kevani has more.
Here is the crucial twist. Even if Iran and Oman signed that agreement on managing traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, we cannot expect it to automatically reopen. Iran's state TV has quoted an informed source saying the deal is strictly bilateral and has nothing to do with the U.S. The source adds, if U.S. violations continue, the strait will not reopen even with an Iran-Oman agreement. We should wait and see if Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi travels to Islamabad in the coming days. That could clarify significantly. But even if the strait fully reopens, we then face the big issues, uranium, missiles, proxies, and that's where it gets complicated. Iran believes that time is on its side, in fact, so they're bracing for long and tough talks. This is a direct challenge, in fact, to what President Trump and his administration keep insisting. Tehran is painting the White House as a bluffing actor, one that talks tough but always pulls back at the last moment. U.S. officials have repeatedly threatened massive strikes on Iran, and to walk those back, they have mentioned mediation or pressure from Arab states in the region. Iran's reading is clear. They see it as weakness. So they're projecting total defiance, signaling these threats don't scare them. The latest example comes from Ebrahim Azizi, head of Iran's Parliamentary National Security Commission. He warns the U.S. will not only be pushed out of the region, but from every country that hosts American bases. He says Washington will soon be so stretched it will have to use all its base resources just to defend its own borders.
That was Asan Kevani reporting. U.S. President Donald Trump says there was an all-day negotiation with Iran on Tuesday. He says the talks were positive, while threatening to hit Iran really hard if there was no deal. Tehran's denied any talks with the U.S. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The U.S. contradicting Iran, but also U.S. officials seemingly contradicting themselves. Donald Trump was very clear on Monday. He thought that the talks were taking place between the US and Iran. Iran has pushed back on that. But his top officials have doubled down, saying that talks are taking place. But all of it really begs the question, because this is what we often see from the Trump administration, is it true? Because they often say a deal is being done, talks are taking place, only for the Iranians to contradict them. But remember, Donald Trump has warned that really this is the last chance for Iran to do a deal, and he has threatened them with decapitation if they don't come through with a deal that reopens the strait. And we're continuing to hear more reports suggesting that the Pentagon is really in serious difficulty when it comes to that stockpile of ammunition. Some of the latest reporting coming from CNN suggesting that the Pentagon has now used up 80% of their interceptor missiles that are used in the THAAD defense systems. Now, that's bad news for the United States, but it's also bad news for other Gulf nations who rely on that US-made technology in defending their own countries. And they're worried that if Iran continues to send missile and drone strikes, if they can't get the weaponry from the US, those drones and missiles might get through the defenses and hit their territory. That is a concern for the Pentagon. It has an impact on the US military, has an impact on Gulf nations, but it could also, remember, have an impact on voter sentiment here in the United States. We're inching towards the midterms in November, and we already know poll after poll shows that the majority of Americans are against this conflict and very worried. But after Donald Trump said it would only last 4 to 6 weeks, it's now dragging on almost to the 5-month mark.
That was Nick Harper in Washington. The UN World Food Programme warns that at least another 49 million people could face acute hunger by the end of next year due to this year's El Niño phenomenon. They expect the weather pattern to be the strongest in more than 7 decades. It should peak between September and December, disrupting planting and harvest seasons in many regions. Officials expect Central America and Southern Africa to be among the hardest hit, with significant impacts in Eastern Africa, South America, the Caribbean, and South and Southeast Asia. The food security outlook is further worsened by prolonged conflicts around the world, which have disrupted fertilizer production and supplies of other key agricultural needs, raising concerns that a new wave of hunger could become increasingly difficult to contain. Europe's facing a brutal wildfire season this year. The European Union's Emergency Response Coordination Centres tallied twice the usual number of wildfires across the continent. They say overstretched emergency resources need to be mobilized faster for future climate-related disasters. William Denslow reports from Brussels.
An unprecedented level of destruction. French firefighters near Bordeaux continue to do battle with a blaze that scorched over 40,000 hectares of land. That's 4 times the size of Paris. Help has been arriving. The European Union has provided more than 10 planes and helicopters, with the promise of more resources if needed.
France was dealing with another fires in different areas of the country, especially in the southeast. For this reason, the area capacity of France was involved in other fires.
The European Union's emergency response gathers resources from across the bloc's 27 member states, as well as 10 partnering nations. Mapping from the Copernicus satellite service is also helping crews on the ground. It's an operation orchestrated here in Brussels. Faced with multiple wildfires across the continent, officials tell me a quick recovery of resources is vital to be ready for the next crisis.
The resources is not coming for the town beside, it's coming for another country. Then takes time to prepare all the crew, to prepare all the aerial resources to be deployed, and for this reason it takes at least 1 day.
But resources are under increasing strain. Roughly 1,200 fires have been reported across Europe so far this year. Officials say that's twice as many compared to the annual average.
Wildfires have scorched more than 250,000 hectares of land this year. That's about the size of Luxembourg. EU officials say they must adapt quicker to keep pace with a changing climate.
The current fires raging in southwest France have gotten to the gates of Bordeaux, according to the city's mayor. EU officials tell me dealing with such fires so close to major urban areas has presented fresh challenges.
If you need to combine to protecting people, thinking about the evacuations plans, thinking about looking how for example, the emission of CO2 can affect this. So this is something that is new, and definitely something that we will be looking at this, how to better prepare for the next season.
Europe is warming faster than any other continent, with wildfires only expected to intensify. Those tasked with coordinating the response are feeling the heat.
That was William Denzel reporting. Record low water levels on the Danube River have exposed around 20 World War II-era German shipwrecks near the Serbian town of Prahovo. Retreating Nazi forces sunk the vessels at the end of the war, and the wrecks are now restricting navigation along one of Europe's busiest waterways. The shipwrecks have become a tourist attraction, although officials say efforts to remove them have made only limited progress so far. Meanwhile, the drought has also reduced output at Serbia's main hydroelectric plant by roughly 20% of capacity, prompting an emergency government meeting on energy supplies. Coming up, UNESCO recognizes Beijing's architecture and urban planning.
Discover the realities and responses to our changing climate with Climate Watch. Uncover critical issues such as the Masai Mara's disrupted wildebeest migration and the drop in the Panama Canal's water levels. Delve into solutions for a sustainable future. Tune in to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. Become more eco-conscious and take action to protect our planet.
22 past the hour. UNESCO has named Beijing as the World Capital of Architecture 2029. Along with the International Union of Architecture, it awards the title every 3 years. The program recognizes cities that use architecture, urban planning, and cultural heritage to promote sustainable urban development. UNESCO says it chose Beijing for combining its rich architectural heritage with a forward-looking approach to city planning, highlighting its historic preservation, urban renewal projects, and vibrant architectural culture. Previous world capitals of architecture include Rio de Janeiro, Copenhagen, and Barcelona. When it comes to tourism, Beijing is looking back to move forward. The city is now revitalizing its old residential blocks, turning them into integrated spaces for culture and community. Yu Bo-kun checks out one of the capital's oldest quarters to see its fresh new vibe.
This place holds different meanings for every generation. For many locals, Longfu Temple was never merely a tourist attraction. It was simply part of daily life.
Back then, our factory handed out movie tickets. So we'd all come to the workers' club here to watch films.
I'd come here to buy shoes as a kid.
I used to come here when I was in my 30s. This area was filled with snack stalls back then.
The history of Beijing's Longfu Temple area spans nearly 600 years. It's always housed the capital's busiest local market. My parents said they used to hang out here when they were young. Decades later, the neighborhood now looks very different.
Today, people are not just coming here to check out the landmarks. They are coming here to grab a cup of coffee or simply sit there to watch the city go by.
The shift is creating new opportunities for local businesses.
I'm really fond of this neighborhood. I grew up nearby and have deep affection for this place. So I opened my shop here. Longfu Temple feels just like classic old Beijing hudongs, perfect for wandering around. This is how we've shopped since childhood.
What makes Longfu Temple different is that tourism hasn't replaced local life. You still see residents shop for groceries, and visitors experience Beijing the way locals do. Just a few walks away, you will find the nearest hutong in Beijing, one of the oldest markets in Beijing, and also local Beijing dishes in the local restaurant.
This summer, Dongcheng District is adding even more reasons for people to come. Live performance, pop-up market are helping turn Longfu Temple into a place where people turn to not just to visit, but to spend time.
Yeah, I do like it a lot. It's very nice, very clean, very peaceful. It's near the Hutong and it's near all the sightseeing places as well, so it's very convenient.
The Longfu Temple's real draw lies in authentic local daily life. Decades ago, my parents came here on a date. Today, a new generation is making memories here because the best destinations aren't just visited, they're lived.
That was Yu Bakun at Longfu Temple in downtown Beijing. The city is also seeing rising numbers of overseas visitors this summer. Now, Beijing's border checkpoints have seen steady high passenger flow since June, with crossings surpassing 10 million in the first half of the year, up around 10%. Wu Chong has a story.
Customs data from Beijing shows a surge in tourist spending, with the city processing over 110,000 tax refund applications in the first half of 2026, a staggering 567.7% jump year-on-year. Total sales of duty-free goods exceeded 900 million yuan, up nearly 50%. Since the start of summer, European and American visitors have been increasingly choosing family-based self-guided tours thanks to visa waiver policies and easier mobile payment.
We
didn't join a tour group, we traveled independently. Everything is fine. There are all kinds of apps so we can book rides easily. The hotel is comfortable and the staff are very helpful.
At Beijing Silk Street Market, foot traffic from overseas shoppers has jumped eightfold compared to the same period last year, according to the mall's management. Top-selling items include electronics and summer gadgets, like smart fans.
Up to now this year, the number of foreign visitors to our market has grown by 800% from last year. Products like electronics and cooling devices, smart fans, for example, are hot sellers.
From traditional souvenirs like silk and tea to smart devices and tech products, the expansion of tax refund and payment convenience is making shopping in China easier than ever for international travelers.
We can also put the cards on your phone, so it's easy and you don't have to worry about any extra change or anything. So very straightforward.
This year, the Ministry of Commerce, together with the Ministry of Finance and the State Taxation Administration, issued new measures to enhance the departure tax refund process and boosting inbound consumption. In Beijing, supporting services including instant tax rebates and cross-border mobile payments have been continuously upgraded. The city now operates 7 centralized refund counters, 51 instant refund stores, and over 1,600 tax refund outlets, with each transaction now completed in under 2 minutes.
That was Wu Chong reporting. And along with China's opening up policies, hashtag Chinamaxing or Becoming Chinese has been trending on social media globally this year. We talked to some of the foreign tourists in Beijing to learn more about what's on top of their agenda.
This summer in Beijing, all the famous historic spots have welcomed many foreign tourists, like they always do.
It's my second time. The first time I traveled to Shanghai, Nanjing, and Suzhou.
I'm glad that I've been able to see places that had thousands and thousands of years of history.
But the trips to China are no longer confined within typical sightseeing or learning about the ancient culture.
I also try to fit into society and maybe try to watch some video on WeChat and Alipay to see maybe some cultural changes between Italy and China.
There you go. It's more about the Chinese people's modern lifestyle.
I'd like drink bubble tea like Chinese people.
And we've seen people in the past, doing Tai Chi, dancing as well, and also doing karaoke in the park in the evening, and we love it.
Using mobile payments. I wasn't used to it in Spain, now I'm a master.
For a full-on experience of modern China, it's not just how you pay, but also what you buy.
We got fan, umbrella, different umbrella with designs, magnets. We saw yesterday in another mall, like they had these traditional clothes, but in a modern style. They were really beautiful.
There's some headphones I was seeing that I wanted to buy, and the clips here in your ears and their headphones. I thought those were really cool.
Some of the foreigners we talked to in Beijing have plans to fly to Guangdong for their next destination. When asked why, they said they had watched the Chinese romantic film Dear You and simply wanted to check out the movie scenes.
Those are some tourists sharing their travel experiences in Beijing. The city's going to be cloudy overnight, thunder showers tomorrow, a low of 26, and it's up to 34 on Friday. Time for a short break. So far this hour, Japan's marking the 81st anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima as protests intensify against the current government's military ambitions. Iran says it's near an agreement with Oman on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, and UNESCO is recognizing Beijing as a world capital of architecture. Shane Bigham with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
The transition to a greener future is no longer a distant goal. It's happening now. In power plants, factories, farms, and cities across China. As the world grapples with climate change, energy security, and the growing demand for electricity, China is searching for new ways to cut emissions while keeping its economy moving. Across the country, our reporters visit renewable energy hubs, industrial centers, and agricultural communities to see what that transformation looks like in practice. Through first-hand stories and on-the-ground reporting, we explore the opportunities, the challenges, and the ideas shaping China's green transition. Listen to China's Green Code, Rewriting the Rules of Growth, a special series from Climate Watch, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Shane Bigham with you on this Thursday. Still to come. In business, China's machinery sector records strong growth through the first half of the year. In sports, the European football preseason continues its warm-ups in Asia. In culture and entertainment, a popular Chinese film debuts in Vietnam ahead of more international markets. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTN Radio. You're also welcome to subscribe to our Substack newsletter Beyond Beijing for the world's biggest stories, along with sharp insights and exclusive analysis. But now to check the day's headlines, here's Tianlu.
Thank you, Shane. China's top court has issued a set of provisions marking the first judicial interpretation supporting the country's ecological and environmental code. The 13 articles clarify how courts should handle environmental cases during the transition to the new code and will take effect on August the 15th alongside the legislation. As China's first comprehensive environmental law, the code covers pollution control, ecosystem protection, and green development. It also supports the country's goals of peaking carbon emissions before 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality before 2060. China has completed a new geological map of the moon, offering one of the most detailed views of lunar structures to date. Compiled by researchers from the Chinese Academy of Geological Sciences, the map marks more than 13,000 impact craters, 81 impact basins, 14 types of geological structures, and 17 types of rocks. Based on data from China's Chang'e lunar missions, the map updates understanding of the moon's geological history and will support future lunar research. Chinese researchers have confirmed the existence of the glue ball, a new form of matter that scientists have been searching for decades. The Beijing Spectrometer 3 collaboration made the discovery after 15 years of experiments. Researchers say the finding confirms a long-standing prediction in particle physics and offers new insight into the fundamental building blocks of the universe. The United Nations has warned that the Islamic State group remains a resilient and evolving global security threat despite years of sustained counterterrorism operations. Ogujeren Niyaz-Berdiyeva, head of the UN Office of Counterterrorism, said the threat is particularly acute in parts of Africa.
The challenge now is to consolidate these hard-won gains through strong and accountable institutions, effective administration of justice, rehabilitation, reintegration efforts, and measures that address the conditions that could enable the group's resurgence.
She said counterterrorism operations have significantly weakened the group in Iraq, but warned that continued efforts are needed to prevent its resurgence. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has criticized the U.S. decision to revoke the visa of the Brazilian ambassador to Washington. Lula described the move as unwarranted, irresponsible and thoughtless, saying Brazil will not receive new ambassadors before its general elections in October. The U.S. State Department announced a visa revocation in retaliation for Brazil's refusal to issue visas to 2 U.S. officials and its alleged delays in approving the U.S. president's nominee for ambassador to Brazil. Lula says Washington showed little urgency regarding its diplomatic presence in Brazil, leaving its embassy without a chief representative for over a year and a half. He says Brazil demands to be treated with respect. Meteorological authorities say Europe is the world's fastest warming continent, with temperatures rising at about twice the global average since the 1980s. Britain has already been facing an extended dry spell, with parts of the country seeing little to no rainfall for more than a month. The unusually dry conditions have turned many of London's parks brown, leaving visitors surprised.
As we've been walking around the park today, looking around at the fields and the grass, seeing it so brown, it is very strange, isn't it?
Like, it was the first thing we noticed when we walked in, was that the grass looked just completely barren. And then back home, like, we're still quite lucky where it's still quite green and luscious to a point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely caught us off guard seeing it here. And like, I mean, we've come to this park a fair bit whenever we're up, like, in London. And yeah, it's a completely different view to what we're used to. And you're like, oh, okay, that's a bit odd.
Much of southern England is experiencing prolonged dry weather, the stage before an official drought is declared.
All right, thank you very much. That's Tianli with headlines. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in business, China's machinery sector records strong growth through the first half of the year.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
At 37 past the hour. Turning to business now, and here's Wang Zihang.
Thank you, Shane. Chinese mainland markets ended mixed on Thursday. The Shanghai Composite Index rose more than 0.5%, while the Shenzhen component edged down by over 0.2%. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index fell nearly 1.5%, while Japan's Nikkei declined by about 1%. China's machinery industry continued to expand in the first half of 2026. Data from the China Machinery Industry Federation shows that large machinery companies increased their industrial output by 6.4% in the first half of this year. 5 major sectors, including general equipment, specialized equipment, automobiles, electrical machinery, and instrumentation manufacturing, all recorded growth of more than 6%. Goldman Sachs has raised its forecast for China's artificial intelligence market, citing stronger AI models amid growing business use. The U.S. Investment Bank expects China's AI sector to generate $13 billion in revenue this year, up 30% from its previous forecast. It also projects the market could reach $125 billion by the year 2030. Improving AI technology and wider corporate adoption are driving the growth. Data from the Open Router platform shows that Chinese AI models have remained among the world's most used models for 14 weeks now, with DeepSeek V4 Flash leading in usage. China has launched a new artificial intelligence training base in Xiong'an, a new urban development area near Beijing. Xiong'an was established to help support Beijing's development and become a hub for innovation and advanced industries. Working with leading companies, the base offers training and certification programs covering skills from basic AI applications to advanced research and development. It aims to cultivate more practical AI talent and support the growth of China's intelligent economy. Now, based on the latest performance of Chinese AI models and the growing use of AI in industries, Michael Wang spoke with Zhang Gong, a professor at the University of International Business and Economics, to discuss the impact of AI development and its future prospects.
What is your overall sense, though, in terms of how China is thinking about this relationship between, on the one hand, applying AI widely across industries, but at the same time protecting the dignity of workers?
Well, first of all, let me say that AI will replace massively jobs. I don't think it's going to be based on historic precedents. For example, in the Industrial Revolution, there's this idea that machines are going to replace people, and there are those people who go on destroying machines, and these are called Luddites. And history tells us that, later on it creates more jobs than those jobs being lost to machine. And I think it's the same thing is going to happen here in AI as well. We're not talking about, AI kicking off people off the labor market. We're talking about the labor market structural adjustment, structural change, in that there'll be more jobs created related to AI. At the same time, there'll be jobs that are going to be replaced by AI-related applications. This is going to be an adjustment, a change, basically. Nevertheless, I think there's a room for government intervention here. The Chinese government is cognizant of the fact that this labor market structural change is going to incur some frictions, and there'll be policies in place to make sure that it's not going to cause too much of a dramatic change. So, these are the things that illustrate that the Chinese government understands that the future is with AI. Labor market concerns should not be a reason for slowing down this development. But nevertheless, we're also being cognizant of the labor market issues. Make sure that people are not going to be dramatically affected.
And Professor, of course, for China, it's not just about the capability of its AI models. It's also about the widespread diffusion of AI across industries under what's known as the AI Plus initiative. So, for example, AI plus healthcare, AI plus e-commerce, AI plus sports, you name it. What's your sense of how that effort is progressing?
The real advantage of China's economy is with respect to its manufacturing, right? And AI plus coupled with manufacturing is a powerful, powerful combination, in my view. It makes Chinese products much, much more competitive, Chinese companies much, much more competitive on international markets. And I think this is actually going to create a huge advantage for corporate China. And behind this, of course, there's the government push to make it happen faster, to pour resources, funds, capital into these areas. So I think this is actually a huge advantage for the China's economy. I see probably the gap between China's industrial prowess compared to other countries even wider, even more in the future. So I think this is actually a very good thing for China's economy.
That was Zhang Gong from the University of International Business and Economics. China's latest tax data shows that policies supporting innovation and manufacturing are continuing to boost economic growth. In the first half of this year, tax cuts, fee reductions, and export tax rebates for these sectors totaled nearly 2 trillion yuan, or about $270 billion. Those measures have helped accelerate industrial upgrades and support emerging industries. The digital economy remained a major growth driver, with revenue from core digital industries rising about 9%. Traditional sectors, including food, clothing, and paper manufacturing, also saw steady growth. Meantime, emerging industries such as smart vehicle equipment, drones, and robotics continue to expand. Businesses are also increasing investment in innovation, with spending on research equipment and services up more than 10% in the first half of the year. Foreign companies are strengthening their innovation presence in China, with Shanghai emerging as a key hub. More multinational companies are viewing China as a global center for research, development, and innovation. Biran reports.
In the first half of 2026 alone, more than a dozen of foreign-funded R&D centers either opened or expanded in Shanghai.
According to the Ministry of Commerce, over 25,000 new firms were established with foreign investment in the first 5 months of this year, while nearly 4,000 companies increased their foreign investment. Here in Shanghai's Taohejing High-Tech Park, some of the world's leading companies from Estée Lauder and SK Hynix to Abbott have made a strong presence. British health and hygiene company Reckitt has now opened its largest science and innovation center in Asia here, underscoring Shanghai's role as a hub for global innovation.
The center is the company's 9th global R&D hub, with total investment exceeding 300 million yuan. From advanced manufacturing, consumer goods to financial services, foreign companies are continuing to expand their footprint in China.
We have a thriving business in China, and we are excited about the investments that we're making. We are not shy about investing in China because it makes sense.
China has introduced a new action plan containing 15 measures to be taken across 5 key areas. The policies aim to further expand market access, streamline investment procedures, and strengthen investment promotion.
It's well known. China is an innovator and leader in manufacturing technology, and we have used a lot of that in our Taichung factory that we built recently. And we also seek inspiration for our other manufacturing sites from that around the world.
For foreign businesses, market size remains an important attraction. But companies are also recognizing another source of competitiveness, innovation. Foreign investment in China's high-tech industries rose by 20% year-on-year, and they are not just entering the Chinese market. They are strengthening their R&D and supply chains here and deepening the long-term development. For many foreign companies, the calculus of investing in China is becoming more nuanced. The country's vast market, deep supply chains, and growing innovation capacity remain difficult to replicate. At the same time, investment decisions increasingly hinge on regulatory certainty and a level playing field.
We see many cases that a lot of the companies are now ready to take China as a lighthouse for their operations across Asia-Pac and global.
Chinese authorities have also pledged equal treatment for foreign-funded companies, including in government procurement, consumer trading programs, and other business opportunities.
That was B-Run reporting. And finally, German industrial orders rose more than expected in June, but the recovery remains fragile. New orders increased by 3.1% from the previous month, beating market expectations. However, large-scale deals drove much of the increase. Excluding those major orders, demand actually fell slightly, showing that Germany's industrial sector still faces pressure. Over the second quarter, companies saw a modest recovery in orders compared with the previous 3 months, but underlying demand remained weak.
All right, thank you very much. That's Wang Ziheng with Business. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, the European football preseason continues its warm-ups in Asia.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
47 past the hour. And turning to sports now, here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Shane. In football, Chelsea suffered a second straight preseason defeat, losing 1-0 to Juventus in Hong Kong. Mykhailo Mudryk returned after his doping ban, while Mike Penders, Giovanni Quenda and Danny Welbeck made their first appearances for the Blues. Head coach Xabi Alonso says it's the process.
Unluckily, we didn't get to win, but for sure it's the process. It's minutes for everyone, and now we have 2 more before we go back to London, and we will be the ones that we will start the seasons. For sure, we are a big part, but we are missing another big part as well.
Alonso's side will now look to recover on Saturday against AC Milan in Jakarta before finishing their Asian tour in Malaysia. FIFA says it has apologized to all member associations for mistakes made over the now abandoned proposal to sell commercial rights linked to the World Cup. FIFA also reaffirmed its support for President Gianni Infantino after a crisis meeting in Morocco. It also said handling of the withdrawn FIFA Forward Enterprise proposal should have been different. In a statement, FIFA said a separate letter had been sent to council members and the 211 member associations apologizing for the errors and promising a review. It added that with the proposal withdrawn, FIFA would no longer tolerate any attacks on its integrity, good governance and due process, and would protect its reputation. Meanwhile, UEFA pushed back against the FIFA's controversial plans, with their troubled relationship taking another turn. Football journalist Kerr Rodnich shared his take on the escalating row.
One person who didn't expect such a reaction was Infantino himself, who thought he could just throw this idea out to his 211 member associations, that they would all say, oh yes, please, we'd like lots of that money, and we'll vote for you again to be re-elected next year. Just show us where we go. Infantino's plot, plan, scheme, call it what you like, is dead in the water, because the major regional confederations have told him that it's just a non-starter and that basically he is a non-starter. Although he has a handful of football associations who said they're in favor of the idea. Basically, they are by far outvoted, outplayed by all those who are against it, because people fear the commercialization of the World Cup itself. I mean, FIFA is, you have to remember, a non-profit body. I mean, Infantino actually got the job because of what was called the FIFA-gate scandal of corruption 10 years ago. This crisis is actually even more serious because the FIFA-gate scandal basically was about individuals' greed. This one is about the entire profound structure of the World Cup itself. And fans all around the world have a great emotional investment in the World Cup, and they don't like to see it being played with too much in the commercial sense. Obviously, FIFA has to generate funds to keep itself going, but there is a limit. In terms of quality, the more teams you have in the World Cup, the lower the quality. Yeah, we had great stories from this year. But the problem is that in 4 years' time, the World Cup is the centenary World Cup. They want a big party, and that's got to involve nations in South America as well as in Europe and Africa. And maybe, funnily enough, 64 teams is quite an effective way to do it.
That was football journalist Kara Nuch. Brazilian midfielder Danilo dos Santos is close to a move to Italian club Atlanta. The 25-year-old is under contract with Botafogo until 2029, with a release clause reportedly over €30 million. Manchester United, AC Milan and Zenit have also shown interest. Danilo has scored 11 goals and provided 7 assists in 43 appearances for Botafogo since joining from Nottingham Forest in 2025. He has 8 caps for Brazil and played at this year's World Cup. And finally, in tennis, top seed Alexander Zverev is out of the Canadian Open in Montreal. The world number 1 lost to Tallon Griekspoor in the second round in 3 sets. Zverev was playing his first match since the Wimbledon final and looked in control after winning a tight first-set tiebreak. But the 30-year-old Griekspoor fought back to stun the 2017 champion in 2 hours and 34 minutes. Zverev entered the tournament as top seed after Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz withdrew. 4th seed Daniil Medvedev crashed out in straight sets to world number 70 Boris van der Zandschulp. 9th seed Casper Ruud has booked a place in the 3rd round of the tournament. He eased past Juan Manuel Cerundolo in straight sets 6-1, 6-2 in 1 hour. Ruud will next take on João Fonseca in the 3rd round.
Thank you very much. That's Yang Guang with sports. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, a popular Chinese film debuts in Vietnam ahead of more international markets.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
At 53 past the hour. In culture and entertainment, the Chinese film Dear Use premiered in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. It attracted nearly 1,000 attendees, including people from across society, as well as members of the overseas Chinese community.
We consider this as a remarkable and refreshing film. It's more than just a movie. It also conveys a great deal of Chinese culture and history.
Many scenes in the film reminded me of my own grandparents.
I feel this film really resonates with Vietnamese audiences. The emotions and values it conveys feels very familiar to us.
Well, Dear Use also premiered in Thailand. Director Lan Hong Chun has taken time to talk about why Bangkok's Chinatown was chosen as the filming location and how the film hopes to evoke emotional resonance for audiences in both countries.
We chose to set our story in Bangkok's Chinatown, not just for its vibrant, lively atmosphere, but because the word Siam carries profound meaning for the Chaoshan community. In our dialect, the elderly often say Siam when referring to Southeast Asia, and for them, that single word instantly evokes the collective memory of the Nanyang migration. So while we chose to shoot in Bangkok's Chinatown, it actually serves as a condensed symbol of the entire Chinese migration experience across Southeast Asia. We've also blended elements from other Nanyang cultures into this space, creating an imagined world that captures the spirit of Siam. and the migration stories it holds. What we truly want to convey is that the emotions explored in this film are universal. We all share the same sense of responsibility to family, the same deep love for our loved ones, and the same bonds of friendship and kinship. These pure emotions connect us across generations, and we hope audiences everywhere will feel that resonance.
Chinese films premiered in Jakarta as well, drawing audiences from political, business, and cultural circles. The movie centers on Chowpi, letters and remittances sent by overseas Chinese to families back home. The film opens nationwide in Indonesia on Friday. A group of 19 Chinese-language learners from the University of Lisbon have reportedly, or rather recently, taken part in a 2-week summer camp in Tianjin. They tried playing the guqin, visiting high-tech firms, made dumplings with local families, and joined square dancing with elders. Some of them say they felt inspired after visiting the Great Wall. The Confucius Institute selects 20 or 30 learners annually for the program. With growing interest in Chinese, several students plan to pursue further studies in Shanghai and Tianjin in September. Traditional Chinese operas taken center stage at UN headquarters. Earlier this week, artists from the Zhejiang Jingkun Arts Center performed excerpts from classic Kunchu productions, drawing crowds of staff and visitors. Onlookers filmed the graceful performances and lingered to learn more about the stories. One UN judge called it a wonderful and expressive thing, while the visitors said the emotion came through clearly even without understanding the language. The event was co-hosted by the UN Book Club and Zhejiang's Cultural Department. UNESCO recognized Kunchu in 2001 as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity. A new survey of 1,000 people shows Chinese-style theme parks are booming in China. Over the past year, 60% of respondents visited theme parks more than twice. When choosing a park, 62% prioritize cultural appeal, while 87% want more parks featuring traditional Chinese culture. Visitors praise immersive experiences like period costumes. However, some say certain parks borrow cultural names without delivering real content. Experts suggest deeper cultural development, better interactive programs, and more creative souvenirs. As families seek fun and education, a call for culture at every step is growing, blending entertainment with history to pass on traditions in fresh and engaging ways. We're at 57 past the hour. Beijing's cloudy overnight. We get thunder showers tomorrow, a low of 26, and it's up to 34 on Friday. Shanghai will be cloudy tonight, becoming overcast, a low of 28 and a high of 34. Chongqing will be cloudy, light rain falling tomorrow, a low of 26, the high is 35. Nanchang gets clouds tonight and tomorrow, a low of 28 and a high of 36. Lhasa will be cloudy through tomorrow with a low of 15 and the high is 26 degrees. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad will see moderate rainfall tonight. It eases off the cloudy conditions tomorrow, a low of 24, and it's up to 34 degrees Celsius on Friday. And that's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour. Making news today, Japan's marking the 81st anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, as protests intensify against the current government's military ambitions. And Iran says it's near an agreement with Oman on shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. On behalf of the staff, this is Shane Bigham in the Chinese capital, hoping you'll join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
The best military commander is not he who fights 100 battles and wins every one of them. The best military strategy does not lead to the desiccation of the enemy's capital city. Decoding the Art of War will help you understand why there's no art in war and how Sun Tzu stayed undefeatable using the science of war, with fun stories and insightful breakdown of famous battles. Find Decoding the Art of War wherever you listen.
A poem for the Tibetan antelope, the gentle spirit of the Qinghai Sea Zone Plateau, spoken by voices from across the world. Every spring, female antelopes migrate hundreds of miles to Zhuonai Lake to give birth, as we build gentle passages for their journey.
Hello, little Tibetan antelope. Eyes opening to the light for the very first time.
To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower.
So much wonder calls for so much courage. But have no fear. The way home is right there, waiting for you.
From the snows of Kowloon to the winds of Tangula, the wilderness will teach me to be strong.
But the call of life itself never ceases.
A train runs toward the horizon. A road stretches through the wilderness.
The bridge that soars through the clouds is no barrier across the land, but a gateway to where I truly belong.
Tibetan antelope's hoofprints loosen the soil, letting snow melt sink into the earth.
Human presence passes through,
but we've never walked this land alone.